Yi. When you force yourself to keep going, when you choose discipline over comfort, courage over fear, and action over excuses, the world within you begins to realign to the rhythm of consistency. At first, nothing seems to change. In fact, it often feels worse. Your brain resists you, whispering that all your efforts are meaningless. But if you persist just a little longer, just a little more, something begins to shift. The silence within your mind starts to find order. You realize that real transformation doesn't happen on the outside. It happens in the way you think, react, and choose moment by moment. Most people live as if their mind is the master, while they are merely servants to old habits. They react automatically, act out of fear, and then wonder why they can't break free. The truth is, if you don't learn to reprogram your mind, you'll always be controlled by it. The mind is not your enemy, but it needs a leader, and that leader is you. No one teaches us how to observe our thoughts. No one tells us that every phrase repeated in our heads is a command line running in the background. You say, "I'm not good enough, I always fail, I'll never change," and your mind records those words as orders. It doesn't judge, it executes. That's why the first step in every reprogramming process is to become aware of your inner language. Every time you repeat a limitation, you're rewriting your own future. Once you realize that power, you'll uncover another truth. Success and peace are not two separate worlds. Peace doesn't mean the absence of action, and success doesn't mean the loss of stillness. They are two sides of the same mind, one that has been properly programmed. A mind in order creates effective action. A calm mind creates lasting results. So today's journey isn't about becoming someone else. It's about returning to yourself, the version of you that got lost in the noise of fear and pressure. When you learn to recalibrate your inner signals, you don't just gain control over your thoughts, you begin to direct your emotions, behavior, and energy. You'll start to feel a deep sense of peace in every decision you make. And that peace is the first sign that your reprogramming is working. You don't need to start perfectly, you just need to start consciously. Each day, take a few moments to observe your mind as if you were watching lines of code on a screen. Don't rush to fix, just notice. Awareness is the beginning of freedom, and freedom is the foundation of success. People often think that successful people are born with a different kind of brain. They believe there's something in their genes, their circumstances, or their luck that makes them superior. But the truth is much simpler. They just know how to control what happens inside their own minds. They understand that the mind is a tool, not a sentence. And like every tool, it can be trained, adjusted, and reprogrammed to serve a higher purpose. You don't fail because you lack talent. You fail because you're running on an old program, lines of code written by fear, bias, and memories of the past. Since childhood, you've been told that money is hard to earn, success is far away, and happiness comes last. Each of those beliefs became a firewall that blocks every effort to change. You try to move forward, but your internal system quietly pulls you back to the familiar. That's not laziness, it's your brain's self-defense mechanism. The human brain is designed to prioritize survival over growth. Every time you try something new, the primitive part of your brain sounds the alarm. Danger. You feel tension, hesitation, and look for reasons to delay. But here's what few people tell you: the resistance you feel doesn't mean you're going the wrong way. It's a sign you're stepping out of your old programming. When you learn to recognize it, instead of fearing it, you can begin to use it as a guide. Imagine your mind as a garden. If you leave it unattended, the weeds of old habits will grow wild and choke every new seed. To change, you must start pulling the weeds. And pulling weeds isn't pleasant, it takes patience, and it must be repeated daily. Many people quit because they expect instant results. But reprogramming the mind isn't a race. It's a process of refinement. Every time you observe a negative thought without reacting, you're erasing a faulty line of code. The modern world feeds a dangerous illusion that motivation is an endless source of energy. You watch an inspiring video, read a few quotes, and feel powerful for a few minutes. But when real life begins, that energy evaporates like steam, because motivation isn't sustainable without discipline. Emotion alone can't reprogram the mind, only repeated action can. When you act consistently, even without excitement, your brain begins to understand this matters. New neural pathways form, new habits appear, and new beliefs solidify. That's why successful people don't wait for inspiration. They act first, and inspiration follows. It's this steady action that creates the peace others are searching for. Inner resistance is not something to destroy, it's something to understand. Whenever you hear that small voice say, "Don't bother, stop and ask, who's speaking?" you'll realize it's not your true self, it's the old part of you, afraid of being replaced. It's not evil, just accustomed to safety. But if you let it lead, you'll repeat the same cycle. Start, excitement, delay, quit, regret. Reprogramming the mind doesn't require defeating yourself, it's about learning to negotiate with yourself. When you're tired, rest briefly. When you're scared, acknowledge it. When you're disappointed, watch that feeling pass like a cloud. You are not the sky, you are the one who sees the sky. And once you learn to observe, you separate yourself from unconscious reaction. Someone once asked me, "How do I overcome the fear of change?" I answered, "You don't overcome it, you walk with it." Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's moving forward despite it. Every step you take weakens fear's power. Every time you pause to listen instead of judge, you rewrite a piece of your old program. Gradually, you'll realize that the mind isn't a prison, it's a tool that requires training. The outer world doesn't betray you, it mirrors what you believe. If you believe life is always hard, it will keep sending you experiences to confirm that belief. But if you believe you have the power to reprogram yourself, the world will respond with opportunities, coincidences, and steps that seem random but fit together perfectly. That's not magic, it's the law of attention. Wherever your focus goes, energy flows. When you start to change your mindset, people around you may react. They're used to your old version, and your evolution makes them uncomfortable. Don't let that pull you back. When you reprogram your mind, you don't just change yourself, you shift the energetic field around you. A clear mind can influence an entire room, a conversation, even the future. And if today you feel unready, remember this: no one is ever ready to change. They just begin and find their strength along the way. That's why you must stop searching for reasons and start rewriting yourself, one thought, one choice, one day at a time. There's one thing you must understand before you go any further. Your life is not determined by your circumstances, but by how you think about them. Two people can face the same unemployment, endure the same loss, live in the same difficult conditions, yet one falls while the other rises. Why? Because the second person has learned to master the language of the mind. They don't let old thoughts write their future. They reprogram themselves. Your mind is a machine more sophisticated than any supercomputer in the world. It remembers, calculates, reacts, and predicts every possibility. But if you don't know how to control it, it will run on old commands installed since childhood. Commands like, "I'm not good enough," "I don't deserve it," "The world is too hard," or "I can't change." Each of these is a line of code, looping silently in the background. And the frightening part is that most of us don't even realize we're programming ourselves to fail. Reprogramming the mind isn't about learning a few self-hypnosis techniques. It's a journey of reconstructing belief systems. The brain operates through repetition. The more you hear something, the more you believe it. The more you think a certain way, the stronger the neural pathway becomes. That's why, when you begin to change your thinking, you're not just thinking differently, you're physically rebuilding your brain. Science calls this neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself. It means that by changing your thoughts, you literally change your brain. Success and peace are not opposites. They are the natural outcomes of the same process when you learn to guide your thoughts and emotions. Those who chase success without peace often live in anxiety and exhaustion. Those who seek peace without action slowly lose their creative power. But those who know how to reprogram their minds find harmony between movement and stillness. They work not to prove, but to contribute. They rest not to escape, but to renew. Observe truly great people. They don't need to shout to prove confidence. They are calm, yet resolute. They act consistently not by emotion, but by principle. They don't wait for luck, they create probability. And it all begins with how they think. When you believe everything can be learned, your mind opens. When you believe challenges are tests, fear dissolves. When you believe peace exists within discipline, you begin to feel freedom within structure. Reprogramming the mind isn't about erasing the past, it's about rewriting its meaning. You can't change what happened, but you can change how you interpret it. The pain that once broke you can become a lesson in resilience. The betrayal that once closed your heart can become the beginning of compassion. And the failure that once made you ashamed can become the foundation of confidence. Every time you choose to view the past from a new perspective, you're reprogramming your perception. One of the fundamental truths about the mind is that it doesn't distinguish between reality and imagination. If you visualize vividly and emotionally enough, the brain records it as real. So if every day you picture yourself as weak or defeated, you'll live exactly that way. But if each morning you spend 5 minutes imagining yourself living with confidence, focus, and success, your brain will gradually rewire itself to match that image. You're not just imagining, you're sending instructions to your nervous system, teaching it how to respond in real life. The difference between someone who drifts through life and someone who masters it lies in conscious programming. The first lets emotions dictate actions. The second uses actions to regulate emotions. When you act, the brain registers, I'm in control. When you procrastinate, it registers, I'm powerless. Every small daily choice, waking up on time, finishing a simple task, keeping a promise to yourself, is a moment of reprogramming your brain to believe, I am capable. You might ask, how do I start this process? The answer isn't in grand changes, but in small, consistent repetitions. Each morning, when you wake up, don't grab your phone, breathe deeply, look around, say a short sentence to yourself, I am here, and today, I will create value. It sounds simple, but the repetition of these acts activates the parts of the brain responsible for self-control. Gradually, you'll feel calmer, clearer, and stronger. True strength doesn't come from eliminating negativity, but from transforming it. When you feel fear, don't run. Ask what it's trying to protect. When you feel anger, don't suppress it, see where you're hurt. When you understand your emotions, you control your reactions. And when you control your reactions, you control your life. That is the highest level of mental reprogramming. Complete self-mastery. Every real transformation begins from within. Not because the world changes, but because you see it through a renewed mind. You begin to see opportunity where you once saw obstacles. You begin to feel peace even before achieving your goals. And the miracle is, once you reach that state, success starts to come naturally. You no longer chase it, you simply become the person worthy of it. Remember, everything in your life is the result of the code running in your mind. If you want to change the results, you can't just change your actions, you must change the program that drives them. Your mind is the scriptwriter, your life is the performance. And from this moment on, you can take back the pen and rewrite the entire story. Sir, there's one truth few people talk about when it comes to self-development. You are not broken, you are not weak, and you are not undisciplined. You are simply being protected by your own brain. Your mind isn't trying to ruin your life, it's trying to keep you safe. Procrastination, fear, laziness, all of them are self-defense mechanisms. When you understand that, You no longer need to hate yourself every time you fall short. You begin to see the hidden reason behind the reactions you once despised. Whenever you attempt something new, the brain detects a threat. To it, anything unfamiliar is potentially dangerous, so it slows your heart rate, makes you anxious, tired, or ready to quit. That's not proof that you're not good enough. It's proof that your defense system is working. The human brain was designed to maintain stability, not to evolve. Every time you want to change, you awaken the deepest layer of your survival instinct. If you've ever asked, "Why do I know what I should do but still don't do it?" the answer lies in this mechanism. The brain doesn't distinguish between a physical threat and an emotional one. When you're about to say something that might be judged, or start a project that might fail, your brain reacts as if you were facing a wild animal. Your body tightens, your heart rate spikes, your breath shortens, and then you retreat. You're not lazy, you're just following a survival program. Ironically, this system once saved humankind. But in the modern world, it has become a barrier to growth. We no longer run from predators, but we do face judgment, rejection, and failure. The brain can't tell the difference, so it continues resisting anything that pushes you forward. It makes you choose safety even when that safety is suffering. Understanding this is a turning point. When you realize resistance isn't an enemy but a signal, you begin to respond differently. Every time you feel the urge to delay, instead of blaming yourself, ask, "What is my brain trying to protect me from?" Maybe it's fear of shame, loss, or pain. When you name the fear, its power decreases like turning on a light in a dark room and watching the ghosts disappear. Remember, the mind is a loyal soldier. It only follows orders. If you say, "I'm scared," it activates defense mode. But if you say, "I am safe," it begins to relax. Each day, spend 1 minute telling yourself, "I am safe to grow. I am safe to take risks. I am safe to change." These words aren't just comfort, they're reprogramming signals. Neuroscientists have found that when you associate feelings of safety with risky actions, the brain forms new connections. Instead of reacting with fear, it begins linking those actions with joy, curiosity, and freedom. That's how you hack the mind's defense system, not by fighting it, but by cooperating with it. Instead of trying to silence fear, you teach the brain that fear is part of growth. Observe yourself closely. Every time you procrastinate, do you hear that small voice saying, "Don't bother, it's not worth it"? That voice isn't intuition, it's memory. Maybe you were laughed at for failing, abandoned for making mistakes, or judged for standing out. The brain stores those memories as warnings. Don't go down that road again. But if you let those old warnings steer your life, you'll never discover a new path. Real growth begins when you can face fear without running. Each time you do something that scares you, you send a new message to your brain: "I can handle this." The more you act, the stronger that signal becomes. Over time, confidence stops being something you chase, it becomes something you embody. That's why people who act despite fear grow exponentially faster than those waiting to feel ready. You don't have to silence fear, you just have to walk with it. When you learn to say, "I hear you, I understand you, but I'm still moving forward," you become the leader of your inner dialogue. That's when you reclaim control. Peace doesn't come from eliminating conflict, but from understanding it. When you accept that resistance is a natural part of change, you stop fighting yourself. You start to trust that every emotion has a purpose, every challenge a message. And within that understanding, you find a different kind of strength, the strength of kindness toward yourself. Imagine this: every time you fail, instead of saying, "I'm so stupid," you say, "I'm learning something new." Every time you're slow, instead of scolding yourself, you say, "I'm just afraid of the unfamiliar." How much lighter would you feel? That lightness isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Because only when the mind feels safe can it truly learn something new. You are not broken, you just haven't been taught how to understand yourself. When you change that perspective, you stop fighting yourself. And when you stop that inner war, you release an enormous amount of energy. If directed properly, That energy can transform every area of your life, your work, your relationships, and even your sense of peace each morning. You don't need to become someone else to heal. You just need to remember that you've always been enough, and your mind simply needs to be taught how to believe that again. And that is the true beginning of reprogramming, realizing you were never broken, you were only learning how to operate yourself. Woo, imagine your mind as a computer. It has an operating system, applications, data, and hundreds of background codes running that you never see. Every belief, every memory, every experience is a line of code. Some were written by you, others were installed by someone else, your parents, society, teachers, or the people who once hurt you. Over time, these lines of code start to conflict, system errors appear. You begin to slow down, respond incorrectly, and sometimes even crash yourself. And when that happens, most of us don't know what to do except blame ourselves. But the simple truth is this: you're not broken. You just need to update your inner operating system. Every time you try to change your life through external effort without addressing the inner code, you're merely installing new software on an outdated system. It's like trying to run a modern app on an old computer. It won't work, or worse, it'll freeze the entire system. To make life run smoothly, you must start from the deepest infrastructure, your core beliefs. The commands like, "I'm not good enough," "The world is unfair," or "I must please others," are what clog the system. Updating the operating system doesn't mean erasing old memories. You can't format the past, but you can overwrite it with stronger commands. When you repeat a new belief long enough, the brain begins to register it as the new default. This is the neuroscience concept of neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to physically change its structure through repeated thoughts and actions. In other words, you're reprogramming hardware through software. Think of how a programmer fixes a bug. They don't smash the computer or get angry at the system. They observe, record, locate the conflicting code, and replace it with a better command. You must treat your mind the same way. When you notice yourself reacting negatively, don't punish, observe. Ask, what line of code is running right now? It could be, "I don't deserve love." It could be, "If I'm wrong, I'll be rejected." Once you identify it, you can rewrite it. You rewrite beliefs not by denial, but by replacement. Instead of saying, "I'm not weak," say, "I'm growing stronger every day." Instead of "I'm not afraid," say, "I can act even when afraid." The brain doesn't process negation, it only focuses on the central image of the sentence. If you say, "I'm not failing," it still pictures failure. But if you say, "I'm learning to succeed," it forms new images, new emotions, and new neural pathways. Like any good operating system, the mind needs regular maintenance. Each day, you should clear mental clutter, worry, comparison, doubt. Take a few minutes to observe and delete the files that no longer serve you. It might be a toxic relationship, an old judgment, or a draining habit. Then, update your software, read, learn, and expose yourself to ideas that elevate your awareness. Your environment is the data source your brain constantly downloads from. You can't expect a peaceful life if you keep feeding it negativity, envy, and toxic content. Remember, the brain works like a filter. It constantly asks, "Does this confirm my belief?" If you believe life is hard, your brain will find evidence to prove it. But if you start believing life supports you, it will search for proof of that too. You're not changing the world, you're changing the lens through which you see it. And when the lens changes, the entire picture transforms. Many people fear change because they think it means destroying the old. But in the world of software, the best approach is gradual upgrading. Start with small tweaks. Instead of trying to become someone completely new, focus on becoming a little more aware each day. When you make a mistake, don't scold yourself, treat it as a debugging signal, feedback helping you refine your system. When you stay patient with this process, your brain learns to adapt without major resistance. A good programmer always tests the system before releasing a new update. you should do the same. Each night, ask yourself, did I react today as the old me or the new me? That small question is your system monitor. Every time you respond differently, you're running an upgraded version of yourself. And when you do it long enough, the old version naturally fades without force. Look at your life right now. Every result you have is a program running exactly as it was coded. If you feel stuck, you might be using someone else's code. If you feel drained, you might be operating with outdated commands. The good news, you can change them. The mind has no expiration date. No matter your age or past pain, this system can always regenerate. And when you truly master rewriting your inner operating system, you'll realize something profound. Peace doesn't mean shutting down all programs. It means having them run in harmony. You don't need to eliminate fear, anger, or doubt, only align them with their proper purpose. When every part of you works together, that's when you reach the peak performance of the soul. Updating the mind is never a single action. It's a series of small, repeated decisions made with awareness and persistence. Each time you choose calm over panic, discipline over delay, compassion over judgment, you're patching another line of code. And when that process completes, you'll find yourself not only performing better and loving deeper, but also feeling peace flow through every corner of your life. Remember, the most powerful computer in the world is in your head, but you're the only one with access to its code. No one else can write, delete, or upgrade it for you. There's no magical software, no savior, only you, the invisible keyboard of awareness, and the courage to type new commands. When you dare to do that, you don't just change your mind, you change the entire operating system of your life. Look, most people live as if they're merely users of their own minds. They operate on the surface, trying to control outcomes through action, without realizing that the deeper system is where everything is truly decided. But there's a turning point in personal growth the moment you stop living as an operator and start living as a programmer. You no longer just react to life, you design it. You stop asking, "What's happening to me?" and start asking, "What command did I write that made this happen?" The very moment you ask that question, you awaken. Look back on your past years. How many times have you told yourself, "I will change," only to fall back into old habits? How many times have you promised to control your emotions, only to get angry again, panic again, give up again? Each time, you thought you lacked willpower. But no, you were simply running an automated program. When you become the programmer, you stop obsessing over controlling every behavior. You understand that every action is just the output of inner code of the beliefs, emotions, and mental images you repeat every day. A good programmer doesn't fight every small bug. They go straight to the source. They rewrite the code so the system runs differently. You can do the same. Instead of trying to stop being afraid, rewrite the belief that says, "Fear doesn't make me weak, it makes me alert." Instead of trying to stop worrying, install a new command. Worry is simply a reminder to prepare better. Instead of fighting yourself, you collaborate with yourself. That's the difference between a programmer and a reactor. The reactor is led by circumstances. The programmer leads circumstances. The reactor waits for inspiration. The programmer creates inspiration through action. The reactor looks for excuses to delay. The programmer finds a way to begin even with just one small step. As you gradually shift from times doing times to times being asterisk, everything within you changes. Your actions no longer come from fear, but from identity. You no longer act to achieve, you act because it's who you are. Neuroscience has proven that when you attach behavior to identity, the brain begins to function differently. Instead of constantly asking, "Should I do this?" it automatically triggers, "I am the kind of person who does this." Compare these two sentences, "I'm trying to exercise," versus, "I'm someone who takes care of my body every day." The second one is infinitely stronger because it defines who you are, not just what you do. The programmer knows identity is the foundation of every program. So the first step to becoming a programmer is to define who times you want to be, not what times you want to achieve. Results are byproducts of identity. If you become disciplined, success follows. If you become grateful, peace appears. If you become trustworthy, your relationships transform. Because you're no longer trying to prove your worth, you're expressing it. Start with a simple exercise. Write down one sentence. I am someone who, and finish it with the version of yourself you want to become. For example, I am someone who keeps promises to myself. I am someone who takes action even when afraid. I am someone who brings peace wherever I go. Each morning, say it out loud and feel it. At first, it might feel fake, that's just the old system resisting. But if you stay consistent, your brain will start to believe. And once belief changes, behavior follows. A programmer also knows that new code only works when it's run often. You can't write one command and expect the whole system to change automatically. There must be repetition, reinforcement, and testing. Every time you fail, don't delete the code, debug it. Check, adjust, and run it again. That process is called times iteration times continuous refinement. In personal growth, iteration is discipline and self-awareness. Each day, you only need to move a little, but in the right direction. Here's a fascinating truth. The brain only believes what has behavioral evidence. If you think, I'm disciplined, but act otherwise, the system rejects the command. But even one small action, waking up 5 minutes earlier, completing a task you avoided, sends proof. Every action becomes a verified line of code. Gradually, you no longer need to force yourself, because the system runs on its own. Great programmers never ask, when will I be done? They ask, what can I improve today? Because they understand that every living system requires continuous updates. So does your life. There is no finish line in self-development, only progressively optimized versions of you. Once you accept that, you'll find peace in the process. You'll stop fearing imperfection, knowing you're improving every day. Once you become the programmer, every failure turns into data. Instead of feeling shame, you feel curiosity. Instead of stopping, you ask, what update do I need to install next? This mindset makes you unstoppable, because failure only exists for those who quit. Learners evolve. When you live with this awareness, you stop working merely for outcomes. You live with a profound sense of purpose. Every thought and action becomes an act of creation. You begin to see the world as an endless code base where everything can be rewritten. Emotions, habits, relationships, destiny. And you realize that true power doesn't lie in controlling everything, but in creating an inner system strong enough to remain stable through everything. Remember, working hard may make you successful for a while, but working systematically keeps you successful forever. When you become the programmer, you no longer need motivation to act. You act because it's who you choose to be. You no longer chase success, you attract it. You no longer search for peace, you radiate it. And from that moment on, life stops being a series of reactions. It becomes a masterpiece you consciously design line by line, day by day. See, there's a mistake that keeps most people trapped in disappointment. They believe that change must be big, fast, and dramatic. They think that to reprogram their minds, they need major breakthroughs, bold decisions, and life-altering moments. But the truth is, the human mind doesn't change through explosions. It changes through small, deliberate, consistent repetitions. What transforms your life isn't one night of motivation. It's the 5 minutes each day you choose to do the right thing, even in the smallest way. 5 minutes, it sounds insignificant, yet it's the ignition point of inner power. The brain loves familiarity and resists sudden change. But if you give it a task so small it can't refuse, it begins to comply. Think of a heavy door that's tightly shut. You can't break it open with one hit, but you can open it with gentle, repeated pushes. That's the essence of the 5-minute reset. a simple but profoundly effective method for reprogramming your mind through small actions. Each morning, before your phone rings, before the world pulls you into the whirlwind of information, give yourself 5 minutes just for you. 5 minutes not to scroll, not to think about yesterday, not to worry about tomorrow. 5 minutes to rewrite the startup code of your mind. Take a pen and write one simple sentence. Today, I will live as someone who controls their mind. Then write 3 beliefs you choose to hold for the day. Not what you have, but what you choose to believe. For example, I am calm in every situation. I am stronger than fear. I am good enough to start again. When you write, don't rush to believe, just write. Repetition is the first step that signals the brain to take notice. When you read each sentence slowly and breathe deeply, you send a biological message to your nervous system. I am safe. I am in control. And miraculously, within days, you begin to feel different, not because the world has changed, but because you've awakened as a different version of yourself. Remember, the first 5 minutes after you wake up are golden for reprogramming the subconscious. In that state, brainwaves slow down, and the doorway between the conscious and subconscious mind opens. If you feed it positive signals, the brain records them as the base program for the day. But if you grab your phone and dive into the news or social media, you're allowing others to write the first lines of code into your system. And for the rest of the day, you'll be running someone else's program. The 5-minute reset isn't a spiritual ritual, it's psychological discipline. When you practice it consistently, you're teaching your brain, I'm the one who resets myself every day. From there, you begin to feel a quiet power, the sense that you own your morning, your emotions, and ultimately, your life. If morning is for programming, then night is for debugging. Before you sleep, spend 5 minutes reviewing your system. Ask yourself, did I react today as the old me or the new me? If there was an error, don't scold yourself. Just note it and say, I see that line of code needs optimization. I'll adjust it tomorrow. This small act turns personal growth into a continuous loop. Write, run, review, update. And that loop is the engine of lasting transformation. You can apply the 5-minute reset to any area of your life. If you struggle with procrastination, spend 5 minutes on the task you fear most, then stop. Just 5 minutes. 9 times out of 10, you won't stop because action breaks the inertia. If you want to build a reading habit, read for 5 minutes a day. 5 minutes won't exhaust you, but it will awaken your sleeping intellect. If you want to shift your mood, write down 3 things you're grateful for, no matter how small. The brain doesn't need big evidence. It needs consistent repetition to form new beliefs. The power of small actions lies in consistency. Most people fail not because they lack ability, but because they lack the patience to endure the early phase, the stage when change hasn't yet shown results. They think 5 minutes can't make a difference. But 5 minutes a day for a year equals over 30 hours of mental reprogramming. And 30 conscious hours are enough to rewrite decades of subconscious patterns. Never underestimate small steps. A drop of water can carve stone, not by force, but by persistence. In the same way, 5 minutes of daily reprogramming can penetrate layers of habit, fear, and doubt. It doesn't create instant change, but it builds positive momentum, the gradual accumulation of mental strength. And one morning, you'll realize you've changed, though you can't say exactly when it happened. If you take one message from this, let it be this. Change isn't the result of motivation, it's the byproduct of intentional repetition. You don't need to force yourself to do something big. Just start small, but do it with presence. 5 minutes aren't for perfection. They're to remind you that you always have the power to reset yourself. Each day, give yourself the gift of a 5-minute reset. 5 minutes to write, 5 to breathe, 5 to feel gratitude, 5 to reflect. These short moments will become your anchor in a chaotic world. And when you sustain that rhythm, You're not just building a habit, you're building a new operating system for your mind. Every time you begin to change, an invisible force appears silent, steady, and persistent. It doesn't shout, "Stop," but it whispers over and over in your mind. "It's okay. Do it tomorrow. You're tired today. It'll be easier later." That force is called time's resistance, time's inner resistance. And if you don't understand it, you'll mistake it for weakness, lack of discipline, or low willpower. But the truth is, resistance is the natural response of every mind trying to protect itself from change. Resistance is not the enemy. It's the brain's defense mechanism activating whenever you step outside your comfort zone. Your brain doesn't care whether you're happy or successful. It only cares if you survive. Every new action, every unfamiliar direction is interpreted as a potential threat. So instead of attacking resistance, you must learn to communicate with it with understanding. You can't overcome resistance by trying to be stronger. The harder you push, the harder it pushes back. The secret lies in gentleness. Instead of yelling, "I have to do this," whisper, "I'll just start for 5 minutes." When you lower the threshold of action, you take away resistance's reason to fight. The brain can't react strongly to something small and harmless. A tiny, conscious action is the most subtle yet powerful weapon against resistance. You must understand that resistance doesn't come from laziness, it comes from fear. Fear of failure, fear of judgment, fear of not being enough. Every fear is an old program trying to protect you from pain. When you hear the voice saying, "I'm not ready," don't silence it. Listen and ask, "What are you afraid of?" The moment you ask that question, you shift positions from victim to observer, from being controlled to being in control. There's a simple principle. Emotions that are acknowledged weaken. Emotions that are suppressed grow stronger. Every time you allow fear to be seen, it loses power. Resistance feeds on your blindness, on your refusal to look at it. Write down every reason you don't want to do something, and look at them the way a scientist examines data. You'll realize most of them have no real basis, just habitual reactions. Once you begin to act, resistance changes tactics. It disguises itself as logic. It whispers, "Let's prepare a little more. I need more information. I'll do it when I have time." It sounds reasonable, but it's all refined procrastination. Don't argue with it. Simply say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but I'll do it anyway." Then start right now, even if only for 2 minutes. Short action breaks the circuit of resistance faster than any theory. Another strategy to overcome resistance is to separate emotion from action. You don't need to feel ready to act. Remember, emotion comes times after asterisk, not times before asterisk. When you start, natural energy is released, dopamine flows, and motivation appears. Don't wait for inspiration act to create it. Inspiration isn't lightning from the sky, it's the side effect of movement. Also, never underestimate the power of environment. Resistance is strongest when you're isolated in chaos. Clear your workspace, silence notifications, move your phone away. A tidy desk is a clear mind. When the outer world is calm, the brain feels safe to begin. That's why successful people often have rituals: brewing coffee, playing the same song, sitting in the same spot. Each detail is a signal to the mind, "We're starting now." Resistance also weakens when you become accountable to someone besides yourself. Share your goal with someone you trust. You don't need to explain every detail, just say, "I'm working on this, and I'd like you to check in with me next week." When someone else knows, your brain associates consistency with identity. You're less likely to quit, because your word now defines who you are. When facing resistance, remember the golden rule. Don't run, don't force, just keep moving. Resistance exists only in stillness and avoidance. Each step forward, no matter how small, weakens it. Each time you start, it fades. Each time you finish, it loses power. You don't need to defeat it. You just need to outlast it, day after day. Learn to accept that resistance will always be there. It never disappears completely, but it can become your ally. It will show up whenever you're about to grow, as a reminder that you're on the right path. The wise don't fear resistance, they smile at it. They know that if they feel fear today, it means they're expanding. Something beautiful happens when you keep walking through resistance. You start to trust yourself. That trust isn't delusion, it's data accumulated from every time you acted despite fear, kept going despite fatigue, or stayed consistent when no one was watching. Each act sends a powerful signal to your brain. I can rely on myself. And once you truly believe that, resistance loses its only fuel, doubt. Resistance doesn't come to stop you. It comes to strengthen you. It builds the muscle of persistence, teaches you to start even when you're not ready, and reminds you that real power doesn't lie in being fearless, but in acting within fear. Each time you move through it, you grow stronger and freer. One day, you'll realize resistance isn't as scary as it once was. It's simply a startup signal for evolution, and you'll smile, knowing that every time life feels heavy, it's just proof that you're about to break through another layer of yourself. That weight isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of growth. Joe, change doesn't come from bursts of motivation, it comes from rituals of repetition. People who master their lives don't rely on daily motivation. They rely on systems. Those systems aren't complicated or ceremonial, but they all share one thing in common: consistency. It's as if they're reprogramming their minds through small actions, repeated habits, and simple choices. That's how they transform growth from an effort into a way of being. Your mind doesn't change through inspiration, it changes through repetition and environment. Just as dripping water can carve stone, consistent action can cut through any layer of resistance. So, if you truly want to reprogram yourself, you must create Time's daily mind rituals, Time's daily mental practices, fixed anchors that help you realign your energy, beliefs, and focus. A good ritual is simple but sacred, not because someone else told you to do it, but because you know it keeps your mind tuned to the right frequency. Begin with 4 pillars: stillness, learning, affirmation, and action. Asterisk, asterisk. First, stillness. Recenter the mind. Asterisk, asterisk. Spend at least 10 minutes each morning sitting in silence. No fancy posture, no complicated technique. Just sit, breathe deeply, feel your body, observe your thoughts. Each time your mind drifts, gently bring it back to your breath. The goal isn't to stop thinking, it's to notice when you are thinking. This is how you train the ability to observe without reacting. A person who can observe their thoughts has already begun to master their mind. Stillness isn't escaping the world, it's rebooting your brain before entering it. When you begin your day in peace, the noise outside no longer controls you. Like a calm ocean reflecting the sky, a still mind reflects life's opportunities with clarity. Asterisk, asterisk. Second, learning, feed the mind. Asterisk, asterisk. The brain is a machine that needs nourishment from knowledge. Each day, feed it something that makes you bigger than yesterday. A page from a book, a single quote, a deep reflection. Not much, just consistency. Choose sources that nurture your awareness, not drain it. If you listen to podcasts, choose content that sparks action, not just entertainment. If you read, pick something that makes you think, not just agree. Learning daily provides raw material for new beliefs to take form. Asterisk, asterisk. Third, affirmation. Program the mind. Asterisk, asterisk. After stillness and learning, speak 3 powerful affirmations to yourself. Not empty phrases, but commitments you want to plant in your subconscious. Say them slowly, clearly, and with emotion. For example, I act from faith, not fear. I am worthy of good things. I can handle every situation with calm and wisdom. The brain begins to accept these as truth through repetition. Affirmations work because they travel through emotion, not just words. When you speak with genuine feeling, your nervous system registers it as a real signal. Only when you believe something to be real will your actions begin to align with it. Every affirmation is a line of code rewriting your subconscious. Asterisk, asterisk. Fourth, action. Ground the mind. Asterisk, asterisk. All rituals are meaningless without action. Do at least one thing each day to reinforce your new belief. If you're learning confidence, speak up in a meeting. If you're building discipline, finish a task even when uninspired. If you're practicing self-love, say no to what drains you. Action is where theory becomes reality. Every action sends a message to your brain. This belief is true. From there, the system begins to reprogram itself. Beyond these 4 pillars, add one essential element, asterisk gratitude, asterisk. Each night before bed, write down 3 things you're grateful for: a smile, a cup of coffee, the fact that you overcame fatigue. Practicing gratitude shifts your mind's focus from lack to abundance. The brain cannot feel gratitude and fear at the same time. When you live in gratitude, you're not only reprogramming your beliefs, you're reprogramming your emotional state. Many people ask, how can I maintain these rituals every day? The answer, make them part of your identity. Don't say, I'm trying to meditate every morning. Say, I'm someone who starts my day in stillness. Don't say, I have to read. Say, I'm someone who nourishes my mind with knowledge. When your actions are tied to identity, they stop being tasks. They become natural. To keep the system running smoothly, create triggers throughout your day. For example, every time you touch your phone, take a deep breath. Every time you wash your hands, silently say, thank you. Every time you leave the house, remind yourself, I carry peace with me. These micro-signals bring you back to awareness. You're training your brain to respond to life with consciousness instead of old patterns. Remember, mental stability doesn't come from extraordinary days. It comes from ordinary days done exceptionally well. When your mind has clear rituals, you no longer let emotions dictate your energy. Whether chaos or calm surrounds you, you remain centered. That is the mark of a mind properly reprogrammed. Every small act you do today is a line of code written into your future. Don't wait for inspiration to start. Start to summon inspiration. When you live by these rituals, you stop being someone who chases motivation, you become the source of it. And that's when your life begins to run on positive autopilot, where peace and success are no longer goals, but natural outcomes. Sure, how powerfully can you reprogram your mind if you keep living every day in the same toxic, stagnant, negative environment? The truth is, no one can change sustainably if their surroundings constantly contradict what they're trying to believe. The human brain is a copying machine. It learns by absorbing signals from its environment. If you surround yourself with laziness, chaos, and pessimism, no matter how strong your willpower is, your inner system will eventually sync to that same frequency. But if you live in a space that evokes clarity, cleanliness, and purpose, your mind will naturally mirror that energy. Environment isn't just the physical place you live, it's the energetic field you absorb daily. It includes people, spaces, sounds, habits, and even the content you consume. If your mind is the software, then your environment is the network on which that software runs. A slow connection filled with viruses will crash even the best system. That's why, to reprogram your mind, you must redesign your environment. Start with the closest space, the place where you live and work. Look around. Are there things that make you feel heavy each time you see them? A cluttered desk, a dark corner, objects tied to painful memories, all are hidden environmental codes sending signals to your brain. When you clean, organize, and refresh your space, you're not just clearing physical clutter, you're clearing energy. Every time you let go of something that no longer serves you, you send a message to your subconscious. I'm ready to make room for the new. Choose objects that evoke the state you want to embody. An open book on your desk, a quote you love, an inspiring photo, a candle, or a small plant. Each detail is a mental trigger. Your brain registers images faster than words, and repeated imagery shapes unconscious direction. When you see order, you act with order. When you see peace, you respond with peace. Once your physical space is aligned, evaluate your human environment. Be honest. How many people around you help you grow, and how many pull you down? Every conversation is an update to your mind's system. When you talk to someone who constantly complains, you're downloading victim energy. When you spend time with visionaries, you're syncing with creative energy. You can't take off while still anchored to people who refuse to fly. You can't avoid negativity entirely, but you can choose how often you engage with it. You don't need to cut everyone out, just limit exposure. If you can't leave a toxic environment, create a safe energy zone for yourself, a playlist, a journal, a small corner where you can be your true self. When you have a sanctuary to return to, your mind won't be fully absorbed by the chaos outside. Next, examine your time's digital environment. Times it affects you far more than you think. Look at what you consume daily. Social media, news, videos, podcasts. Every scroll, every post is a line of code running silently in the background. If you constantly feed your mind with comparison, competition, and negativity, you're reprogramming it in the opposite direction of your goals. Curate your input as carefully as you would your food. Ask yourself, does this nourish my mind or poison it? When you control the flow of information, you control the fuel of awareness. A simple trick: before you turn on your phone, turn on Times yourself, asterisk. Don't let a screen write the first line of your day's code. Let your breath, silence, or a few handwritten lines do that. And every time you reach for your phone, ask, what am I looking for, information or escape? Honest answers to that question can save you hours of energy. Beyond space and people, environment also includes rhythm. Let your daily rhythm support you instead of drain you. Everyone has a time's golden performance window, times a time of day when the mind is sharpest and energy is highest. Schedule your most important work in that window. When you live in harmony with your natural rhythm, you don't have to force yourself, your energy flows naturally. Think of your environment as a mental ecosystem. Everything is connected. A quiet morning can help you focus all day. A tidy room can make you feel in control of your life. A friend who listens can heal hidden fatigue. A positive playlist can shift your entire mood in minutes. Small details build large systems. And when the system runs smoothly, you don't have to force positivity, you simply live it. A well-designed environment doesn't just support your actions, it reflects the person you're becoming. Ask yourself, if I were already the person I want to be, what would my environment look like? Then start adjusting the details accordingly. When you live in a space that mirrors your future identity, your subconscious begins to synchronize. You no longer have to try times to believe in change. Your surroundings prove it to you daily. Remember, no one grows in isolation. Environment always wins over willpower unless you consciously design it. So don't live inside someone else's code. Rewrite the people, spaces, and energy around you to serve your evolution. When you do, you're not just reprogramming your mind, you're reprogramming your entire personal universe. And one day, when you walk into your room, hear the music, see the light, and feel the peace in the air, you'll smile, because you'll realize peace was never somewhere far away. It was all around you, in every detail you designed with awareness and love. Shi, there is a moment in every journey of growth that no one can walk through for you, the moment you stop blaming the world and realize, everything in my life is a reflection of me. Not anyone's fault, but my own choices, conscious or unconscious. That is the instant you activate the most powerful switch in the entire mental system. Asterisk, asterisk, absolute responsibility. Asterisk, asterisk. Most people spend their whole lives in victim mode. They believe that circumstances, parents, education, or society are the reasons they can't be happy. They say, if I had the same opportunities as others, I'd be successful. Or, if people understood me, I wouldn't be so hurt. Those words may sound reasonable, but underneath them lies the quiet act of surrendering control. When you blame, you declare that someone else has the authority to program your mind, and in that moment, you hand over your power. Absolute responsibility doesn't mean you have to be happy about every pain. It means you choose how to respond to everything that happens. You can't control the weather, but you can control your attitude. You can't control others, but you can control the energy you bring into relationships. You can't control the past, but you have full authority to rewrite its meaning. Once you understand this, you find freedom even in situations that seem binding. The human mind instinctively seeks someone to blame because it hates uncertainty. Having a culprit provides temporary relief, but it's the relief of a victim. It doesn't move you forward, it keeps you waiting for someone else to change. The truly strong are those who look in the mirror and say, "No one is coming to save me. I am the one responsible for getting myself out of here." That sentence isn't easy, but it's liberating. It breaks the chains of the past. Look back at your life. How many times have you said, "I can't do that because..." Every time you say it, you reinforce the belief that you're limited. But if you replace it with, "I haven't prioritized that yet," you instantly reclaim your power. One word changes everything. Can't is a closing command. Haven't prioritized is an open one. It keeps the choice in your hands. When you live with the mindset of absolute responsibility, you stop waiting for the world to change before you can be happy. You start creating happiness times now. Asterisk. You stop saying, "I'll be at peace when my job is stable," and start saying, "I am peaceful so my job becomes stable." You stop saying, "I'll trust when others treat me well," and start saying, "I choose to trust, and I'll surround myself only with people who match that energy." Things don't shift because of magic, they shift because you redirect gravity from external to internal. Some say taking responsibility for everything is too harsh, but look closer. Responsibility isn't self-blame, it's self-empowerment. When you say, "I am responsible for my emotions," you're not accusing yourself, you're taking back control. When you say, "I'm responsible for my reactions," you pull the strings out of others' hands. And when you say, "I'm responsible for my future," you declare, "No one can stop me but me." Absolute responsibility is also the ultimate test of self-respect. You can't truly respect yourself if you still believe others define your worth. Those who take responsibility understand that mistakes don't define them. Their response to mistakes does. Each time you own an error, you tell your mind, "I'm strong enough to face the truth." And truth, though it stings, is always the beginning of freedom. Something remarkable happens when you live this way. You stop judging others. You realize everyone is simply running their own code, just as you once did. You see that their actions come from old programming, not malice. And in that realization, you free yourself and open space for compassion. But maintaining this state requires time's discipline of awareness. Asterisk. Whenever a problem arises, don't ask, "Who did this to me?" Ask, "How did I allow this to happen?" The second question brings you back to the center of power. It doesn't deny others' responsibility, but it directs your focus to the only thing you can change yourself. Remember, successful people aren't those without challenges. They're those who ask better questions. Instead of, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of, "Why am I so unlucky?" they ask, "What system can I improve for next time?" Each question is a new command to the brain. And over time, the brain starts responding differently. A person living with absolute responsibility no longer fears failure. They understand that every outcome is feedback, not a verdict. If the system doesn't run well, they don't self-criticize. They debug, learn, and update. This calm clarity is what sets them apart. While others drown in emotion, they refine the operating system of life. Absolute responsibility is the stage where you stop saying, "I'll try," and start saying, "I commit." Trying leaves room for retreat. Commitment has only one direction forward. Once you commit to growth, you no longer need external motivation. Inner strength becomes your fuel. You know that no matter how the outer world shifts, you can always recalibrate the inner one. That is true freedom. Once you flip this switch, life becomes clear. No more conflict between fear and purpose, between responsibility and peace. Because you finally understand peace doesn't come from controlling the world. It comes from knowing you can always control yourself. And when you live with that belief, you become the calm at the center of every storm, steady, aware, unshakable. Shira. No one wants to fail, yet everyone must go through it. The question isn't how to avoid failure, but what you'll do when it happens. Because no matter how well prepared you are, there will come a time when the system crashes, plans collapse, and you face the cold sting of real failure. But here's the secret the most successful people understand. Failure isn't the end, it's data. And data, when processed correctly, becomes fuel. When you're driving, a dashboard warning doesn't punish you, it tells you what needs fixing. Failure in life works the same way. It's your mind's dashboard, signaling that some part of your internal code is outdated or misaligned. If you know how to read that data, you stop fearing errors. You start appreciating them because every system crash is a lesson in better programming. Those who fear failure hold a mistaken belief. That failure means, "I'm not good enough." But failure doesn't define you. It simply reflects your current system. When you detach yourself from outcomes, you can view failure through the eyes of an engineer, not a victim. You ask, what command did I write that led to this result? What signal did I ignore? What can I optimize so the system runs smoother next time? Each question transforms pain into curiosity. And curiosity is the energy of evolution. The pain of failure is simply the brain's natural reaction to losing control. The brain craves consistency, and when expectations clash with reality, it produces feelings of frustration, shame, and fear. But instead of escaping those emotions, you can learn to use them as indicators. Emotions are never wrong, they simply tell you where the system needs attention. When you fail and feel awful, don't rush to numb it with distractions, food, or excuses. Sit still, breathe deeply, and ask, what is this feeling trying to tell me? Sometimes, failure doesn't teach you how to do things right, it teaches you who you really are. It strips away illusions and burns off layers of ego built on praise. When everything falls apart, what remains is the most authentic part of you. The strong aren't those who avoided failure. They're those who have been broken many times and learned how to rise with deeper awareness. Remember, failure is a signal, not a sentence. If you reprogram your mind to treat failure as data, you stop feeling ashamed of mistakes and start feeling excited to experiment. Those who fear failure live in the comfort zone. Those who understand it live in the learning zone. And within that learning zone, the brain forms new connections where true intelligence is born. Train yourself to record your failures instead of forgetting them. Just as programmers keep error logs after a crash, you should keep emotional logs. When a project fails, a relationship ends, or a decision goes wrong, write down what happened, how you felt, and what you learned. This helps you see patterns in your behavior and teaches your brain, we've already learned this lesson. Then it stops triggering the same fear each time a similar situation arises. Look back on your past failures. If you're brave enough to truly see them, you'll realize they were the turning points that made you who you are. The job you lost may have pushed you toward your true path. The person who left may have taught you to love yourself. The loss may have taught you to value every moment. Failure only destroys you if you stop at it. If you walk through it, it becomes fertilizer for growth. Those who fear failure rarely succeed because each time they avoid mistakes, they also avoid expansion. The brain only learns through error. Just as muscles grow through controlled damage, intelligence grows through trial, error, reflection, and refinement. That's not perfectionism, it's scientific thinking. Test, fail, learn, adjust, repeat. The key is not to personalize failure. You are not your errors. You are the observer refining the system. Learn to separate yourself from the outcome. I didn't fail. This plan failed. That small shift changes everything. When you stop identifying with the error, you create space for creativity. And when creativity flows, recovery follows naturally. A powerful way to turn failure into fuel is to rewrite your story. Each time you retell your past from a new perspective, you rewrite the subconscious code. Instead of saying, I lost everything, say, I learned how to begin again. Instead of saying, I was rejected, say, I was redirected to a better path. Change the story, and you change the emotion, and emotion is the language your subconscious understands best. There will be days when failure makes you want to quit. Times when you ask yourself, am I wasting my time? But remember, every champion has felt exactly that. They've hung their heads on the desk, felt useless, doubted their journey. The only difference is that they treated those moments as temporary. They understood that emotion is data, not destiny, and they kept going. See every failure as an essential update. Each time you rise, you install a more resilient version of yourself. And one day, when you look back, you'll smile, not because you avoided mistakes, but because you learned to turn them into strength. There is no perfect system, only systems that learn faster. And times are that system. A mind constantly refining, learning, and evolving. When you live with that mindset, failure ceases to be an enemy. It becomes your most patient teacher, guiding you one lesson at a time toward invincibility. Shusan, if there's one secret the most successful people in the world all share, it isn't talent, luck, or opportunity. It's that they love the process of repetition. Asterisk. They understand that greatness isn't born in moments of explosion, but forged through thousands of seemingly ordinary days. The difference between excellence and mediocrity isn't in extraordinary ability, it's in the ability to endure repetition without losing purpose. The human mind constantly craves novelty because the brain is wired to detect stimulation. But that very desire makes us impatient. When the initial excitement fades, we think something's wrong. In truth, the moment boredom appears is the moment mastery begins. Those who stop here aren't lacking ability, they lack the consistency to pass through the quiet zone, where no instant rewards exist, but deep transformation silently unfolds. Every time you repeat an action, you're strengthening a neural pathway in the brain. Like muscle training, every rep tears and rebuilds fibers stronger than before. Similarly, every repetition of a positive habit engraves new code into your neural system. But mastery isn't about repeating out of obligation, it's about learning to times love, times the repetition itself. Ordinary people are driven by results. Masters are driven by the process. Ordinary people act when they feel motivated. Masters act because it's who they are. When you fall in love with the process, you stop counting days and waiting for rewards. Each repetition, no matter how small, becomes sacred because you know that within that quiet repetition, the old version of you is dissolving and a new one is emerging. So how do you love repetition in a world obsessed with speed and results? The answer: change the way you see it. Stop viewing repetition as punishment and start seeing it as art. Every day you repeat the right action, you're touching perfection. Like an artist refining each stroke, like a musician replaying a single bar, you're not doing it to reach the end, but to immerse yourself in the beauty of refinement. Remember, the brain loves the feeling of small success. Break your repetitions into recognizable checkpoints. After each small cycle, pause, breathe, and acknowledge yourself. You don't need grand rewards, just one moment to look in the mirror and say, I kept my promise to myself. That tiny act sends a powerful signal to the subconscious. Asterisk, I am trustworthy. Asterisk. And when you trust yourself, discipline becomes joy, not burden. Repetition is also the language the universe understands best. If you say you want change but your daily actions don't repeat that truth, you're sending mixed signals. But when you stay consistent, the universe responds. Doors open not from luck, but from persistence, the kind of persistence that keeps knocking until reality has no choice but to answer. Like water carving through rock, steady action shapes new pathways in existence. Many people fail because they demand results faster than they can sustainably grow. They want the rewards of years in the span of weeks, but all enduring progress has its rhythm. The Japanese bamboo spends 5 years growing roots underground. For 5 years, you see almost nothing but a sprout, yet once its foundation is ready, it shoots up over 20 meters in mere months. Humans are the same. Those long, invisible years of repetition are when your roots are forming. And when they're deep enough, growth becomes inevitable. So change how you feel about repetition. The next time you feel bored, smile. It's a sign you're nearing transformation. Boredom isn't the enemy, it's the test. It asks, are you doing this for the result or for the person you're becoming? If you keep going, you'll pass the test and enter a higher state of awareness. A simple trick to keep repetition fresh is to attach meaning to every action. When you exercise, don't think you're training your body, think you're training discipline. When you read, don't think you're collecting information, think you're feeding your intellect. When you meditate, don't think you're escaping chaos, think you're refining self-awareness. Every small act becomes sacred when tied to a higher purpose. Repetition is also the greatest lesson in humility. It teaches you that greatness doesn't come from rare bursts of brilliance, but from the willingness to return, redo, and persist, even when no one's watching. Every artist, leader, and athlete has days when they don't feel like doing it, but they do it anyway. They know inspiration doesn't create action. Action creates inspiration. When you grasp that, you stop depending on emotion to move forward. And one day, you'll realize, what once was discipline has become natural. What once was effort has become joy. You no longer count repetitions because every repetition feels like living truthfully. That's the moment you've fallen in love with the process. When you love the process, you stop fearing loss of results because results are simply byproducts of alignment. Finally, remember this: mastery isn't doing everything perfectly, it's refusing to quit while things are still imperfect. Those who love repetition don't seek perfection, they seek evolution. They return to their craft each day as humble students, consistent, curious, and calm. And when you live that way, you don't just achieve success, you embody times it. You become living proof of perseverance, the beauty of process, and the stillness within motion. See, there's a silent habit destroying the potential of millions, the habit of quitting right when they're closest to a breakthrough. Most people don't realize that just before results appear, there's always a dark, heavy phase where everything seems to stall. And it's in that exact moment that the majority give up. They walk away from the race just a few steps from the finish line, mistaking fatigue for failure. But in truth, they're simply running a subconscious program times the withdrawal loop, times one that's been coded deep within most of us since childhood. Think back on your own life. How many times have you started something with fierce enthusiasm, only to watch your energy fade weeks later? How many times have you found yourself back at the starting line, whispering the same promise, "This time, I'll see it through"? That isn't weakness. It's a subconscious command written long ago. Maybe as a child, you learned that if something was too hard, it was best to stop. Maybe you were punished for mistakes, and your subconscious began to associate pain with persistence. Or maybe you grew up watching adults give up and call it being realistic. Those memories became code, and now, whenever you approach a breakthrough, your system automatically triggers the exit command, retreating not because you can't continue, but because it feels safer to stop. The brain is wired to avoid pain more than to chase happiness. When you try something new, you activate its fear center, and it sends the message, stop. This could be dangerous. Not because you're incapable, but because your system thinks it's protecting you. To break the withdrawal loop, willpower alone isn't enough. You must reprogram the survival response itself. You must teach your brain that times, inaction times, is the real danger, and progress is the path to safety. One effective method is pattern recognition. Each time you want to quit, pause and write down, which phase am I in right now? You'll likely notice it's always right after the loss of excitement stage, that dull plateau where effort feels heavy and results are invisible. When you recognize that this feeling is temporary and universal, you can remind your mind, this isn't a stop signal, it's a sign I'm getting close. Another technique, shorten your commitment window. Instead of saying, I'll stay consistent forever, say, I won't quit today, just today. Tomorrow, say it again. The brain fears big promises, but can handle small commitments. And the miracle is, when you stack enough todays, you create a new comfort zone. One where persistence becomes natural. Remember, the moment you most want to quit is usually the moment right before your breakthrough. Like a long-distance runner, the final steps before the finish line are the most painful. The body screams to stop, but if you just push a little further, you surpass biology's limits. In life, mental limits are the same mere illusions. On the other side of, I can't take this anymore, a new version of you is waiting. To rewire the quitting loop, attach positive emotion to perseverance. Visualize the pride, peace, and relief of finishing something you once wanted to abandon. Let your body feel times that reward in advance. When your brain associates joy with persistence instead of retreat, it begins to treat consistency as safety. You no longer have to force yourself, your system naturally aligns. Another powerful strategy, record your evidence of persistence. Every time you push through the urge to quit, write it down. I didn't give up today, and here's what happened. Over time, you'll build a chain of proof that continuing always leads to growth. The brain learns through evidence. When you feed it enough data, it will start believing that persistence works. More importantly, learn to distinguish between times resting times and times quitting. Asterisk. Rest is recovery. Quitting is escape. Rest is conscious. Quitting is emotional. When you rest, you keep your direction. When you quit, you lose it. So if you're exhausted, rest, but don't exit the system. One skip day doesn't break progress, but saying, I'm done, erases all the positive code you've built. Create a personal ritual for passing the quitting point. Every time you feel like stopping, do one action in the opposite direction. If you want to stop exercising, do 2 more minutes. If you want to stop writing, finish 2 more sentences. If you want to give up, take a deep breath and whisper, I'm still here. Those small defiant acts teach your mind that you're no longer operating under the old code. You've chosen a new path. Once you break the withdrawal loop, you'll experience something extraordinary. Progress stops being a sudden leap, it becomes a steady acceleration. Each time you push past the urge to stop, you not only move forward, you expand your internal capacity. Over time, that expansion compounds into unstoppable strength. In truth, every great success is built on hundreds of unseen moments of times not giving up. Asterisk. Not the glamorous victories, but the late nights, the tired mornings, the quiet hours when it would have been easier to walk away. Others will see only the outcome, but you'll know how many times you chose to stay when quitting would have been painless. Remember, quitting is a habit, but so is perseverance. Each time you choose to stay, you rewrite your inner code. And one day, when you face a challenge, you'll notice something remarkable. The thought of quitting doesn't even appear, because your mind has learned a new truth. I don't need to run. I know I can get through this. That's the moment you become unstoppable, not because you're stronger than others, but because you've reprogrammed the weakest reflex in human nature. the urge to give up right before you win. Shiwu. When the journey of reprogramming the mind comes to an end, you realize that the goal was never to become perfect. The goal was to become conscious, to live without being ruled by fear, habit, or the past. You no longer need to prove yourself, no longer need to chase. You simply live, present, grounded, and radiating a peaceful strength that others can times feel times without you saying a word. That's when you become the times peaceful warrior, times one who wields strength without display and holds calm even in the storm. The peaceful warrior is not someone who has stopped fighting. It's someone who has learned to choose their battles wisely. They no longer waste energy on proving their worth, arguing, or resisting what's beyond control. They direct their power toward creating, loving, and inspiring. When others react in anger, they respond with awareness. When others complain, they act. When others panic, they return to their breath. They know that peace isn't the absence of challenge, but the steadiness within challenge. To become such a person, you must walk through everything we've spoken about: understanding the mind, reprogramming beliefs, overcoming resistance, loving repetition, and embracing absolute responsibility. But above all, you must accept every part of yourself, both the light and the dark. Because peace doesn't come from erasing weakness, but from embracing it with kindness. When you stop fighting yourself, you release immense energy. Energy once spent on self-conflict now transforms into inner strength. That energy becomes your new power, still, deep, unshakable. Living as a peaceful warrior means acting without tension, striving without force, and trusting without control. You stop racing against time because you understand that everything unfolds at the right pace. You stop seeking permission because you've already given it to yourself. You stop fearing failure because you see every mistake as evolution. And most importantly, you no longer doubt your worth because you've realized you were never lacking, only remembering who you've always been. Look back at how far you've come, from mental chaos to awareness, from fear to courage, from doubt to faith. Every phase peeled away another layer of illusion, revealing your true essence: peaceful, powerful, and clear. You no longer need to change the world to feel free. You only need to become free times within times your mind. And when you walk through life this way, you no longer need to shout to be heard. Your energy speaks louder than words. Others will feel it. They'll see in you what the world is starving for: the harmony of power and peace. You've become the peaceful warrior, one who knows that true power isn't control over everything, but serenity times within times everything. You've come this far, and that means something. Most people stop halfway. They quit when it hurts. They quit when it's quiet. They quit when no one is watching. But you didn't. You stayed. You listened. And that says more about your strength than any victory ever could. The truth is, success was never about speed. It's about endurance. Every time you refuse to quit, you teach your mind something powerful: that you can be trusted. And when your mind trusts you, it will follow you anywhere. That's when life begins to shift. That's when peace becomes your foundation, and success becomes your rhythm. Remember this: you were never far from the finish line. Most people give up just inches from their breakthrough. They let a temporary emotion destroy a permanent dream. But not you, not this time. This time, you stay. You breathe through the resistance. You rise through the noise. And you walk out stronger, calmer, and more certain than ever. So the next time your mind whispers, "Maybe I should stop," smile and say, "Not yet, I'm still here." Because one day, you'll look back and realize those were the moments that built you. Those quiet, invisible, unseen moments of commitment. That's where greatness was born. If this message reached you, it's not an accident. You were meant to hear it today. So take a deep breath, lift your head, and remember who you are. You are not a quitter. You are not lost. You are a peaceful warrior, strong in silence, unshakable in storms, and calm in your power. If this spoke to your heart, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone standing at the edge, someone about to give up, because maybe, just maybe, this is the message that saves them. And before you go, take a second: hit times, like asterisk, drop a comment, and Times. Subscribe Times if you want to keep growing with me. Every week, we dive deep into the psychology of courage, purpose, and peace, so you never quit right before you win again. Thank you for being here. Thank you for staying. Now go and finish what you started.